This video is free to watch thanks to the kindness of our donors. If you would like to donate £10 towards our work, you can do so by texting Henshaws to 70085.
My name's Simon Marnie, and I'm now 74. My eye condition was basically glaucoma, but it was also complicated by uveitis and cataracts later on. What caused it originally was that we have glaucoma in the family. My father had it, my uncle had it, my sister's got it. How far back it goes, I really don't know. But obviously it wasn't helped by the fact that I used to smoke, and also all my life I've actually been ingesting fluoride, which can cause a number of eye conditions. It's difficult to recall when I actually first noticed I was losing my sight, but I do know that when I was about 38, I went for a regular check with the optician, and he said, your pressures are high. Not only that, they're different, and I think you need to go to the clinic. So I went to the clinic and they diagnosed glaucoma, which wasn't really a surprise as it was in the family. They did comment it was very aggressive, so how long it had been going before that is anybody's guess. But I put it to the back of my mind, and it wasn't until we came up to Derbyshire in about 2012 that I really noticed my eyesight beginning to deteriorate badly. I was driving along one day, and in the space of 100 yards, I had 3 instances of where did he come from? And I then realised that my eyesight was getting to the point where it was no longer viable to drive, so I hung up my driving licence. Well, I hung up my driving licence for the simple reason that it was pretty clear that sooner or later I'd end up either killing myself or other people, and as far as I'm concerned, that was unacceptable. And the remarkable thing is, hanging up my driving licence, I haven't missed it at all. I have not missed it at all. What I've found instead is by going on public transport, I have the most amazing conversations with people. It's really opened up a totally different world for me. In fact, every Christmas, I go from Ashbourne to Market Harborough to Bedford to Bristol to Ludlow and back again with a haversack of Christmas presents for my grandchildren. I do it all on local buses, and I have a ball. It takes me about 4 days, and it's about 500 miles. Now, if I'd driven that, I'd have been exhausted, grumpy, swearing about the other road users. In fact, I honestly feel not driving has actually contributed to me being a calmer person overall. I think people think I'm mad when I say that now I can't see anything. It's a blessed relief. There are a number of aspects to it. Number one, you're not trying to see with eyes that don't work very well at all. You're not trying to see with eyes that vary with things like barometric pressure, whether you're under stress, whether you're hungry, whether you need a pee, or a host of other things that can alter how your eyes work. What you're having to do is rely entirely on the other senses, and you're not second guessing because you can half see something. So in that way, it is so much easier. Before, sight loss was truly disabling because I was trying to see and I couldn't. Now it's just a mere inconvenience. I don't see it as a disability, I just see it as an inconvenience. Sometimes an infuriating one, but it is, that's all it is. It's just an inconvenience. I'm just using a different set of kit, which I haven't used before, but you know, like everything else, you get used to it. And the great thing is, it's not the unremitting horror that we all think it is when we can see. And that's the extraordinary part of it. I think my sight loss had its greatest impact on my wife and my family. They don't quite get it. And to be fair, I don't think my wife quite got it as well. I think in many ways, the impact is greater on other people because they don't realise they're making subtle alterations to the way they treat you. And you have to pull them up on it, and they don't understand. But when they're trying to help, all they're doing is getting in the way. They're stopping you from moving forward. And of course, the other thing about friends and family is they're very chary about letting you do things because they're obviously worried about their own goods and chattels. I mean, it's all dressed up as health and safety and all the rest of it. That's nonsense. It isn't. It's that people are concerned that you're going to make a mess or you're going to break something. But for my wife, it was extraordinarily difficult. She often used to say to me, "I can't believe you're blind." And I would say to her, "Well, I can assure you I am." And she said, "But you don't act as if you're blind." I said, "Yeah, well, you know, Kelly, I've worked at that. You know, one of the things I taught myself to do to stop making other people feel uncomfortable was to get the best approximation of eye contact that I could. Because I think when people are talking to people without sight, if there's no eye contact, they know there's something wrong, but they can't quite work it out and it disturbs them. But for my wife, I think it was, in some ways, it was worse for her because she could only imagine what I was going through. I knew what I was going through, and it was nothing like as bad as she imagined it to be. As far as hobbies were concerned, I was actually at one point a professional artist. And of all the things I miss, I think I miss painting. I love painting. It gave me quite a nice living at one stage. I was in the middle of writing a book about Spitfires and illustrating it with my own paintings. And that's only, what, 2/3 done, so that will never be completed. But what I've found is that my artistic bent, if you like, has actually been translated into writing. And I've now written 2 books. The first book was Descent into Darkness, which was a narrative about my losing my sight. Basically, what I found, what I wasn't told, what I did about it, and how I dealt with it. The second book is First Catch a Rabbit, which was a book I wrote after I lost my wife and I had to regain use of the kitchen. I had to create a system which would work for me. And people were coming in and saying, "Wow, that's amazing. How are you doing that?" And I suddenly realised that it might be useful to other people. So I wrote the book First Catch a Rabbit. I'm very fortunate in that I've got a lot of qualifications which are appropriate and had a lot of experience, mainly in social work, which has enabled me to distance myself from what's going on and begin to analyse and focus on issues within sight loss. For example, things like how to ask for and also refuse help without getting involved in status conflicts, because every encounter you have has the opportunity to be either a threat, opportunity, or completely neutral. Once you get disabled, you are seen as somebody of a lower status, of inferior ability, and people subconsciously tend to treat you as an inferior. And one of the ways that you've got to work with yourself is to be able to counter that automatic assumption of insubordination. And that kind of thing is actually, I found absolutely fascinating, and I've written about it at length. I think the hardest challenge I've had dealing with my sight is one that is probably common to, let's not be too rash, 98% of people who lose their sight. And that was the first time I went out with a white stick. And it was hard because it was the point of no return. It was the point at which I said to the world, I'm different, I'm disabled, and I'll come back on that in a minute. And it was the crossing of the Rubicon. There was no going back. I was now a fully accredited person with a disability, and I was advertising it with a white stick. A number of people I've said to, how are you getting on with your white stick? Oh, I don't need it, mate. What they mean is they're too embarrassed to use it. I, like many other people, regarded it as a badge of shame. Now I would not go anywhere without my long cane. Far from being a badge of shame, I regard it as an unequivocal statement to the world that I deal with challenges on a daily basis they can't even begin to imagine. So let's have a little bit of respect, please. The advice I'd give someone who is recently diagnosed is very simple. Assume that your sight is going to go entirely and lose not a minute in learning the skills that you would need if you lost your sight altogether. And that includes things like working on your balance, working on your proprioceptive sense, knowing where your hands are, working on mapping and knowing your environment completely. That house, I can go to any room, touch one thing and know exactly where I am within it. But that's a lot of hard work. Learning the basic drills that you're going to need, like making cups of tea, or using the washing machine, or the microwave, or whatever. So learn all the skills you're going to need if your sight does go entirely. If it doesn't go entirely, happy days. But if it does, you're ready for it. The top tip in dealing with sight loss, there are so many, but the one I'd say was most important, to realise that because one part of you doesn't work, it doesn't mean that you're disabled. If your eyes are disenabled, your eyes are disenabled. Your brain still works, your legs still work, your hands still work. If one part of you doesn't work, it does not mean that the entire person is disenabled. From the moment we are born, right through to the moment we step, well, we don't step, but we get put in our grave, we are continually learning and adapting and appreciating new things that are possible. All that sight loss does is to make it a bit more of an issue. That is all. Because you're doing exactly the same. You're learning to adapt. You're learning to, you're dealing with change. You're learning to cope with the world as you find it. And that's all of us. All of us do that all our lives. So it's not a change in kind, it's a change in degree. It's just a bit more upfront, that's all.
Our videos are helping people around the world to go beyond expectations. If you enjoyed this video, please donate to us using the links in the description below, or the text donation number 70085 to give £10 instantly. Thank you. For costs and terms, please see the description below.